In a sea of 50,000 roaring metalheads at Wembley Stadium, one desperate voice cut through everything when 17-year-old Marcus shouted, "Lemmy, this is my last concert ever." What the Motorhead frontman did next became the most heartbreaking moment in rock history, and nobody, not even Lemmy himself, was prepared for what followed. It was August 15th, 1991, at Wembley Stadium in London. Motorhead was headlining the Monsters of Rock festival, and the atmosphere was pure electricity. 50,000 fans had gathered to witness legends, but none of them expected to become part of the most emotional and life-changing moment any of them would ever experience. In the disabled section near the front barrier, secured in a specially modified wheelchair, sat 17-year-old Marcus Thompson with his parents, David and Helen. Marcus was wearing a worn Motorhead shirt that hung loose on his increasingly frail frame, and despite the oxygen tube discreetly placed in his nose, he was more alive with excitement than anyone else in the entire stadium. But Marcus was dying. He'd been battling Ewing's sarcoma, a rare and aggressive bone cancer, for 2 years. He'd endured dozens of surgeries, countless rounds of chemotherapy, and treatments that would have broken most grown men. Through it all, he'd found strength in the most unlikely place: Lemmy Kilmister's uncompromising, no-bullshit approach to life and music. His love for Motorhead had started during his first cancer diagnosis when he was 15. A hospital volunteer named Jimmy, himself a former roadie, had played Ace of Spades to help Marcus through his anxiety before a particularly brutal surgery. That song changed everything for the terrified teenager. "That song makes me feel like I can fight anything," Marcus had told his parents after the surgery. "When Lemmy sings about living fast, I want to live faster than this cancer can catch me." For 2 years, through every setback and every small victory, Marcus's dream had remained constant: see Motorhead live before it was too late. His parents had promised that when he was strong enough, they would make it happen, no matter the cost. 3 weeks before the Wembley concert, Marcus's oncologist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, had delivered the news every parent dreads. The cancer had metastasized to his lungs and brain. Treatment options were exhausted. "We're looking at weeks, maybe a month," she'd said gently. "I'm so sorry." At this point, comfort and fulfilling his wishes are what matter most. That's when Marcus made his request, his final wish that would soon move 50,000 strangers to tears. "I want to go to Wembley. I want to see Lemmy one more time. I want to hear Ace of Spades live before I..." He couldn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. His parents were terrified. Taking their dying son to a massive outdoor metal festival seemed insane, but Dr. Mitchell supported the decision completely. "At this stage," she had said, "experiences matter more than medical precautions. If this brings him joy, then it's the right thing to do." David and Helen had contacted the festival organizers, explaining Marcus's situation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Special accommodations were arranged: a wheelchair-accessible spot at the front, medical personnel on standby, and permission to bring all necessary medical equipment. Marcus had spent the week before the concert preparing with an intensity that surprised his doctors. He practiced singing along to every Motorhead song despite his weakened voice, carefully chosen his outfit, the Motorhead shirt his older brother had given him during his first remission, and created a handwritten sign that would soon change everything. The sign read, "Lemmy, I'm 17 and this is my last concert ever. Can you play Ace of Spades for Marcus? Are you sure you want everyone to know, sweetheart?" Helen had asked, worried about her son's privacy. "Yes, Mom." Marcus had replied with the startling acceptance that only those facing death seemed to possess. "I want Lemmy to know it's important. I want everyone to know that this moment matters." The first 2 hours of the festival had been pure heaven for Marcus. Despite his exhaustion and the overwhelming crowd, he sang along to every song he knew from the opening bands. His parents watched in amazement as their dying son came alive with an energy they hadn't seen in months. When Saxon took the stage, Marcus managed to stand up from his wheelchair, supported by his father, and raised his thin fist in the air like the metalheads around him. The fans nearby, who had noticed his condition and medical equipment, began creating a protective space around the Thompson family, while still including Marcus in the festival experience. "This is the greatest day of my life," Marcus whispered to his mother during a brief pause between bands, his eyes bright with tears of joy. But the real moment everyone was waiting for was still to come. As the sun began to set over Wembley, the stage went dark. The crowd's anticipation reached fever pitch. Then, that unmistakable bass line thundered through the massive sound system, and 50,000 voices roared as one. Lemmy Kilmister walked onto the stage like he owned it, because he did. Marcus was in pure ecstasy. For the first hour of Motorhead's set, despite his pain and weakness, he sang along to every song he knew. During Overkill, he actually stood up and headbanged, his parents holding him steady, tears of joy streaming down all their faces. The band was in incredible form. Lemmy's bass was thunderous, his voice as gravelly and powerful as ever. Phil Campbell's guitar screamed, and Mickey D's drums pounded like artillery fire. This was Motorhead at their absolute peak, and everyone in Wembley knew they were witnessing something special. As they launched into Bomber, Marcus summoned strength he didn't know he still possessed. He stood up from his wheelchair with his father's help, held his handwritten sign high above his head, and did something that shocked even his parents. He screamed at the top of his failing voice, "Lemmy, this is my last concert ever." His voice, thin but determined, somehow carried over the crushing volume of the music. Several fans near him heard it and began pointing toward the disabled section, trying to get Lemmy's attention. Others started reading Marcus's sign and passing the word forward. Lemmy Kilmister, with his performer's instincts honed over decades, noticed the commotion in the crowd. He squinted through the blinding stage lights and saw something that made him stop mid-song. A tiny figure in a wheelchair, obviously sick, holding a sign and being supported by desperate parents. Lemmy held up his hand, and gradually the band stopped playing. 50,000 people fell silent, sensing something significant was about to happen. "What's that sign say, son?" Lemmy called out, his gravelly voice carrying clearly through the venue's sound system. Marcus's father lifted him higher so Lemmy could see him better. With 50,000 people now watching in complete silence, Marcus read his sign aloud, his voice cracking with emotion. "Lemmy, I'm 17, and this is my last concert ever. Can you play Ace of Spades for Marcus?" The stadium remained silent for 3 heartbeats. Then Lemmy Kilmister, the man who had built his reputation on being the toughest, most uncompromising figure in rock and roll, felt his knees go weak. "What's your name again, lad?" Lemmy asked, his voice already thick with emotion. "Marcus Thompson," the teenager called back. "I'm 17, and I've loved Motorhead since I was 15. You got me through cancer, and now." Lemmy began walking to the very edge of the stage. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by something none of his bandmates had ever seen before: vulnerability. "Marcus Thompson," Lemmy repeated slowly, "you're the bravest lad I've ever met. And you know what? Ace of Spades is my favorite song too." Then Lemmy did something that no one in Wembley Stadium will ever forget. He looked at his band, then at the massive crowd, then back at Marcus. "Folks," Lemmy said to the 50,000 people hanging on his every word, "I want you to meet Marcus Thompson. He's 17 years old. He's been fighting cancer, and tonight is his last concert. He wants to hear Ace of Spades, and I think we should give him the most beautiful version of that song that's ever been played." The crowd's response was immediate but respectful. Not the usual wild cheering, but something deeper. An acknowledgement that they were about to witness something sacred. But Lemmy wasn't finished. "Marcus," he called out, "I want you up here with me, lad. Can you do that?" The request sent shockwaves through the medical team, but Marcus's eyes lit up with a fire his parents hadn't seen in months. Dr. Mitchell, who had accompanied them to provide emergency medical support, was already shaking her head, but Marcus grabbed her arm. "Please," he said, "this is why I'm here. This is what I need." What happened next defied every medical expectation and safety protocol. Security and medical personnel worked together to carefully bring Marcus and his wheelchair onto the stage. The process took several minutes, but the 50,000 people waited in respectful silence. When Marcus finally appeared next to Lemmy, the applause wasn't wild. It was reverent, emotional, like a prayer. Lemmy knelt down next to Marcus's wheelchair, and their conversation, captured by the venue's cameras, became one of the most treasured recordings in rock history. "You scared, Marcus?" Lemmy asked quietly, his rough voice gentle. "Sometimes," Marcus replied honestly, "but not right now. Right now I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Lemmy nodded, understanding completely. "You know what, lad? You're going to help me sing this song." The whole bloody crowd is going to help. Can you do that for me?" Despite his weakened condition, Marcus nodded enthusiastically. When Lemmy began the opening bass line of Ace of Spades, something magical happened. Marcus's thin, fragile voice joined Lemmy's powerful vocals, creating a harmony that was both heartbreaking and transcendent. But the real magic happened when 50,000 people began singing along, not with their usual aggressive energy, but with a tenderness and reverence that transformed the speed metal anthem into something approaching a hymn for a dying boy. The Ace of Spades, the Ace of Spades. They sang together, Marcus's voice barely audible, but somehow carrying over everything else. Lemmy kept looking down at the teenager, making sure he was okay, adjusting his own performance to match Marcus's energy. There wasn't a dry eye in Wembley Stadium. Hardened bikers were openly sobbing. Teenage metalheads were crying without shame. Parents were holding their own children tighter, suddenly aware of how precious and fragile life really was. The song became a communal prayer, a shared moment of love and support for a boy who was facing the ultimate journey with more courage than most adults could imagine. When the final chord rang out, the applause wasn't the usual wild cheering of a rock concert. It was emotional, reverent, and lasted nearly 15 minutes as 50,000 people showed their love for Marcus Thompson. After the public moment, Lemmy spent time with Marcus privately on stage while the crew set up for the next song. Their conversation, captured but never broadcast, revealed the depth of both their characters. "Lemmy," Marcus said quietly, "I'm not afraid anymore." "Good lad," Lemmy replied. "You shouldn't be. You've already won the most important fight there is." "What's that?" "You've touched people's hearts. Look at this crowd. They'll never forget you. That's immortality, that is." Lemmy gave Marcus his personal bass pick, a backstage pass that said Marcus's VIP for life, and made him a promise that would soon take on profound meaning. "Every time we play Ace of Spades from now on," Lemmy said, "it's for you, lad. You're part of the song now, forever." Marcus's response to the concert was immediate and remarkable. The joy and energy he'd experienced seemed to give him a boost that his doctors couldn't explain medically. "We expected him to be exhausted for days," Dr. Mitchell said later. Instead, he was more alert and energetic than he'd been in weeks. What happened on that stage triggered something in his system that we don't fully understand. But what happened next surprised everyone even more. Marcus lived for 4 more months after the Wembley concert, far longer than anyone had expected. He spent that time doing something extraordinary. He began visiting other young cancer patients across the UK, sharing his story and spreading the message that dreams are worth fighting for, even when time is short. Video of Marcus and Lemmy's performance spread around the world, garnering hundreds of millions of views. The hashtag Ace of Marcus became a global symbol of courage in the face of terminal illness. Marcus's story sparked a worldwide movement of people sharing their own stories of finding strength through music during difficult times. Musicians from every genre began reaching out to sick children, creating what became known as the Marcus Effect. His parents established the Marcus Thompson Foundation to grant final wishes to terminally ill children. Lemmy became the honorary chairman and used Motorhead's platform to raise millions of dollars for the cause. Marcus taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stop everything to make one person's dream come true. Lemmy said at the Foundation's inaugural event. "That lad showed me what rock and roll is really about, bringing people together and making them feel less alone." Every year on August 15th, Wembley Stadium holds Marcus's Night, a memorial concert where proceeds benefit terminally ill children. Motorhead performed there every year until Lemmy's own death in 2015, always dedicating Ace of Spades to Marcus. "He's still here with us," Lemmy would say each year. "Every time we play that song, Marcus is up there with me, and he always will be." Marcus's story fundamentally changed how Lemmy approached his performances. He began paying special attention to young fans and his audiences and partnering with children's hospitals across Europe to bring music to sick kids who couldn't attend concerts. "Marcus showed me that music isn't just entertainment," Lemmy reflected years later. "It's medicine for the soul. It's hope when hope seems impossible." The night of the concert, something medically unexplainable happened to Marcus. His blood work showed improvements that defied his prognosis, and his energy levels increased dramatically. Sometimes, Dr. Mitchell told Marcus's parents. The human spirit can override medical predictions. What Marcus experienced that night, being seen, celebrated, and loved by 50,000 people, created a healing response that we don't fully understand but can't deny. But it wasn't just physical healing. Marcus's mental state transformed completely. He went from a teenager quietly accepting death to a young man actively fighting for every moment of life. "I have things to do now," Marcus told his parents after the concert. "I have to help other kids like me understand that they matter, that their dreams matter, even if they're running out of time." Word of Marcus's story reached celebrities worldwide. Musicians, actors, and athletes began reaching out, wanting to meet him and support his cause. Metallica invited him backstage. Iron Maiden sent personal messages. But Marcus remained most excited about his ongoing friendship with Lemmy. The two developed a genuine bond, with Lemmy calling every few weeks to check on Marcus's condition and share stories from the road. "Marcus became like a son to me," Lemmy said in his final interview. "He taught me more about living than I taught him about music." During his extra 4 months, Marcus became an advocate for other children fighting cancer. He visited pediatric wards across the UK, sharing his story and bringing hope to families facing similar battles. He would sing Ace of Spades to children in treatment, and many of them began requesting the song during their own difficult procedures. Marcus's song, as it became known in hospitals, became a source of strength for hundreds of sick children. "When I sing Lemmy's song to other kids," Marcus said, "I can see their faces change. They start believing they can be aces too, that they can win against whatever they're fighting." For months after Wembley, Marcus's condition began to decline rapidly. Sensing that his time was truly running short, he made one final request that would become his ultimate gift to the world. "I want to make a video," he told his parents. "I want to sing Ace of Spades one more time, but this time I want to make it for all the kids in hospitals who can't go to concerts." Lemmy immediately agreed to help. In what would be Marcus's final performance, they recorded a music video in the children's wing of Great Ormond Street Hospital. The video featured Marcus singing with dozens of other young cancer patients, all of them channeling their courage into Lemmy's anthem of defiance. The video became Marcus's final gift to the world. It garnered over 500 million views and raised millions of pounds for pediatric cancer research through the Marcus Thompson Foundation. Marcus passed away peacefully on December 19, 1991, surrounded by his family and with Ace of Spades playing softly in the background. His final words were, "Tell Lemmy I'm still the ace." At his funeral, Lemmy performed Ace of Spades acoustically, joined by hundreds of children from local hospitals singing along. The sight of the gruff rock legend, tears streaming down his face, singing for a boy who had taught him about courage, became one of the most powerful images in rock history. "Marcus lived more in 17 years than most people live in 70, Lemmy said at the service. "He taught us that being an ace isn't about winning or losing. It's about how you play the hand you're dealt." When Lemmy Kilmister died on December 28, 2015, his final wish was that Marcus's bass pick, the one he'd given the boy at Wembley, be buried with him. His last words were reportedly, "Tell Marcus I kept my promise." Every bloody song was for him. The Marcus Thompson Foundation continues to this day, having helped over 50,000 terminally ill children experience their dream concerts and events. Marcus's story has been credited with inspiring thousands of musicians to engage with their communities and support sick children. If this story of courage, music, and the power of human connection moved you, remember that there are Marcus Thompsons in children's hospitals everywhere, waiting for their dreams to come true. Sometimes the most rock and roll thing you can do is make sure a dying child knows they matter. Because in the end, we're all just trying to be the ace of spades in our own lives. And sometimes, we need a legend to remind us that we already are.